Hello and welcome to Seeing Jesus with Paul Miller. I'm Liz Voberl, and I'm here with Paul and our colleague Robert Rowe, our student ministry director. This podcast is produced by seeJesus, a global discipling mission. We create discipleship tools and train people in how to use them. We like to say many organizations do important work helping the church be the hands and feet of Jesus. Jesus works on the imagination and the heart. We want to help the church rediscover the beauty of Jesus and catch a vision to live as he lived. So we've been doing just that as we focus on the passion on this end of Jesus's life. And exciting things happen today in that story. So we're going to pick up with the resurrection. Paul, anything in particular you want to put on our minds as we start in this direction?
Yeah, just to kind of review, we're back to Saturday. And so Friday, of course, Jesus dying, and then Saturday, and then Sunday's the resurrection. But just to get the mood of Saturday is, which is oddly enough a Sabbath, there are all kinds of emotions swirling around, but fear is so dominant. Like everybody is afraid of everybody. Like it's just, I mean, we're aware the disciples were afraid because they're locked in their upper room. And they had a reason to be afraid. I mean, because the Roman soldiers had tried to seize them. I mean, they were the Sanhedrin was trying to do a takedown. You know what I mean? They were going after the entire leadership core of Jesus, of the Jesus movement. And scholars call it that. They have different words for it prior to the founding of the church in Acts. But Pilate, we know, is afraid of Jesus. That came through. He was also afraid of the Jewish leaders, and they played him to get him afraid of Rome. And the disciples, we know the Jewish leaders, one of the reasons for killing Jesus, because they thought he was going to lead a revolt and Rome was going to get, so they were afraid of Rome too. The Jewish leaders are afraid of Jesus. So it's just this paralysis, it's just, like hope is absolutely drained. I mean, you can't, the level of despair that they felt. And the third thing is guilt. We know Peter felt guilty. I forget, Robert, do you remember where is in the New Testament, that, maybe it's Mark. There's a couple references to Jesus' care for Peter. Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, I think, mentions that Jesus meets Peter on that there's no mention of it anywhere, that he meets Peter. And Jesus' instruction to the women when they go back, when they see him resurrected, is that is to go he says, tell the disciples. Sorry, little things choke me up. And the disciples and Peter. It's just so personal. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the obvious one when he finds him on the shore and restores him 3 times.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I was mainly trying to think is just remember just Peter's feeling. They're fearful.
Absolutely.
They are, and they're guilty. But the dominant thing is hope is gone. I mean, just the hope.
And they're kind of all hiding a bit, right? Aren't they all together? And
they're all locked in the upper room. Yeah. Yeah.
So even physically, there's they're contracted, all pulled back. And
then of course there's there's kind of several stages. It's a really confusing morning. And I'd say we're 90% sure we know where the upper room is. It's in the southwest quadrant, in the Armenian quarter of Jerusalem. There's pretty strong evidence that we have it because of churches built on it. And we know, we're pretty sure where Gethsemane was and the cross. And by the way, if you visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, they're about 100 feet apart. It's just, looking I got to make sure I got my bearings right. But you're looking north because Jerusalem is below you and to the right. So you're just outside of Jerusalem, but you can't tell it anymore. You have to visualize it because it was just even 40 years later, it was all built up. They were doing suburbia then too. And so looking north, the cross is to your left and the grave is to the right. You can see if you go down to the basement, you can actually see some of the stone where they were cutting the quarry. It's easy to tell from the little places where you can peek that it was an old quarry that they had buried Jesus in. But in that really confusing morning, the women go out and they meet angels and not Jesus, and they have this report of the resurrection. Sorry, it's so moving to me. Maybe it's age or the loss of my daughter. I have trouble going. These things all feel much more stronger. So it's just a classic male female morning, because the men don't believe the women, because they seem crazy, and Liz,
and the men are all stuck in the room, and the women go out to take care of what needs to be done.
And the women have to go out and do the duty, and what I love about that is when you've had a life-altering tragedy, you're just surprised the sun comes up in the morning,
Yeah.
But there are things that have to be done, and the women are attentive to duty. It's just so in the middle,
right.
so
maybe even grateful for their duties, because there is something about that thread that keeps you going and gives you the next thing to do.
Yeah. Let me read from Luke 11. But the disciples did not believe the women because their words seemed to them like nonsense. Rational, logical, dead men don't rise. You know what I mean? This is, anyway, it's just, let me just pull back on a scholarly note. I've enjoyed reading Tom Wright. Generally, sometimes he goes off the deep end, but he often has very creative ways of looking at things, and he's in dialogue with the scholarly community. And it's just I love that. And this isn't just him and the scholarly, but there was two things that everybody in the first century, all the witnesses, everybody agreed on at that morning, at that point. And this is what is that Jesus' body was buried in a location known to the populace in Jerusalem. Everybody knew that Jesus had died and was buried, and they knew where he was buried. It was there was nothing hidden about. And then, it's the greatest mystery of all time, and then everybody knows that by Sunday morning, his body is gone. Mm-hmm. Those are two. I love N.T. Wright's incisiveness, because he hunts like a good historian. He hunts for fixed points. You've got to solve that if you want to take Jesus seriously, and you're an atheist. You want to debunk Christianity. You've got to answer that puzzle. Mm-hmm. It's really an extraordinarily difficult puzzle, and a number of even secular scholars have come out and said, "Look, all the evidence points to resurrection." Because the disciples are just, I mean, there are some attacks on Jesus' resurrection, of course, right away, both within Judaism that are picked up in the Talmud and the Mishnah, but also, I think Justin Martyr is his dialogue with, I'm going to get this, Trypho or something like that. I mean, the Greeks mocked the Christians because they had women as witnesses, which is delightful, because now 2,000 years later, because of the impact of Jesus, women and men have equal value as witnesses. It varies around the world a little bit, but there's so many reasons for thinking something really, really unusual happened, and no one outside of the Christian answer has every other answer about Jesus' body just doesn't make sense. So anyway, there's a lot of good books written on that. I love that stuff, but let's dive into, so now Peter and John return to the tomb with Mary Magdalene. So Mary Magdalene, by the way, it's good to know, so the women walked out to the tomb, then she ran back, and it's about from the upper room, depends which way they went. They likely went down the south gate, the southwest corner. There was a gate, the Essene gate, because at that point, that was the Essene quarter of Jerusalem. And there's, I'll try not to distract myself by talking about the Essenes, but do that in another podcast. But the Essene gate they would have likely gone out through familiar territory, because up north was they would have had to go through a lot of Roman soldiers and stuff. And the gate that's right there outside Jerusalem, where they are, that's the biggest gate near Jerusalem, which was near the cross, was right where Herod's palace was and where Pilate would have been, and it would have been thick with. It would have been better to go out. So it was about a 3/4 of a mile walk. Maybe I don't think it's a full mile walk, but so she sprinted twice now. So she's now. So Liz, go ahead, read to us John 20, verse 1 to 11.
Sure. Early on the first day of the week, while it was still dark, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb and saw that the stone had been removed from the entrance. So she came running to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." So Peter and the other disciple started for the tomb. Both were running, but the other disciple outran Peter and reached the tomb first. He bent over and looked in at the strips of linen lying there, but did not go in. Then Simon Peter, who was behind him, arrived and went into the tomb. He saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the burial cloth that had been around Jesus' head. The cloth was folded up by itself, separate from the linen. Finally, the other disciple, who had reached the tomb first, also went inside. He saw and believed. They still did not understand from Scripture that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Then the disciples went back to their homes, but Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb.
Well, there's a lot in here. Robert, what are some of the things that you love about this opening? Just these verses here. Yeah. Go ahead. Give me a couple of things.
My favorite story. I mean, this whole chapter.
It's an incredible sequence.
It is. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I love to ask people what's humorous about this and just see if they're picking up on, Peter and John's foot race and John being faster than Peter, and Peter's personality is still there. Mr. Contemplative John kind of stops at the entrance, just looking in.
Yeah.
And
good.
Here comes Peter, just barges right in, like,
right.
It's just great. And then, John's repeated lines several times of, the one he loved, the one Jesus loved. Yes.
Yeah. Liz, anything that strikes you about it that's just...
Oh, I love all of those things. Man, I do love that, just the importance of these little details, like the burial cloth and these items and the state that they're in, and just all the detail.
Yeah,
I love Mary's. Everybody's running. This is like the first issue of Runner's World magazine. Here we've got the time and the distance, and
it's so detailed. You the people detail, the timing detail, and then the description of the inside of the tomb is absolutely fascinating.
Which it does. All that detail also makes me think about. I remember after our oldest daughter was born, at some point, my husband and I sat down and typed out together the story, just because it was still so vivid in our mind how all that unfolded. I think those experiences in life that just leave such a mark on us, we do, at least for a few years, we tend to remember them with a fair bit of detail to them, much more so than the everyday ho-hum stuff. So that it feels that rings true to human memory and how it works, that you remember these things so vividly.
Yeah.
Everybody picks up on the folded face cloth. They always ask about that. It was interesting. I was doing this study one time with a group, and one of the ladies in the study was Jewish, and she said, it's our custom as a Jew that when we finish our meal, to signify we're done with our meal, we fold our napkin up and put it beside the plate. And it was just like one of those beautiful moments where somebody's discovered something really beautiful.
Oh, that's really neat.
And as the facilitator, you've learned something from a participant and gone, whoa, like, I haven't fact checked it, but could this be an indication of Jesus as a Jew saying it's finished?
I heard a sermon on this from Vern Poitras, who I guess still teaches at Westminster, that the climax of the sermon was that what was the first thing Jesus did when he got up is he made his bed. Which is just, it's so physical. Someone folded that,
Yeah.
So Jesus folded it up, So it's just,
right.
Paul,
and even, that it matters because a robber would be less likely to fold the grave clothes, right?
Yeah, they're getting in and out.
So it's like all those little details. They also,
and John picks that up, and believes, So he's the first person to know of the resurrection.
So Paul, here's my most most shocking thing about this text up to this point is that Jesus has just accomplished the most extraordinary. It's the epicenter of all of history.
Yeah.
And we don't know where he is.
Yeah.
And his two best friends have come to the tomb, and he quietly stays discreet.
Yeah. It really is. It's just great. I mean, it makes it like it makes it Jesus that morning. I mean, what makes a birthday so much fun is the unwrapping the present. You know what I mean? Is the surprise, the unwrapping the present. You know what I mean? There's something lovely about getting unwrapped, and Jesus lets himself get unwrapped.
Yeah, the word that comes to mind as you say that, Paul, is playful, right? There's something playful to hang back.
Yeah. And so, Mary, let's read the next little section there.
Yep. So I'm picking back up with verse 11.
So read 11 through 14 there, Liz.
Yep. But Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize it was Jesus.
That's great. I mean, we're going to just focusing on just this little scene here. Liz and Robert, what anything that is special to you there?
I mean, I think so much. I think it's beautiful to incarnate with Mary, that the contrast. Obviously, I understand the men running back home, kind of, Jesus isn't here, let's go figure this out. Probably fear, Mary's a woman, maybe she didn't have as much fear to be arrested. But the fact that she's sitting in her lament, she's just the last place he was. She just wants to, and I'll learn a lot from her in that, that it's okay to sit in your lament.
Yeah. The other thing I think about with Mary is that I'm just thinking about how the women had, there were still things to be done, right? And so her awareness that his body needs to be anointed, right? There's like some sort of ritual thing that needs to be done. That has driven them there to go do this work. And then he's not there. I can even see how that leads to then the breaking of emotion, right? Like, because now she can't complete the mission that she set out for, and she's not sure what to do. And so it pulls out that emotion.
Yeah. Well, here are two things that I love about. There's little things you learn about Mary all through this incident, but one of them is that she is the first person that we know of who turns away from two angels because they aren't helping her.
Yes.
I mean, this is my wife to a T. If the trash needed to go out and the archangel Gabriel was there with the message, well, get the trash, then we'll talk to the, like, it's just, you know what I mean? You could see her will, like her focus on Jesus is so powerful. And, we know from Luke that she had been demon possessed and Jesus had freed her. And so what we're looking at is at the depth of her love for Jesus, is so powerful. So it's not willfulness. She's just in pursuit, and the angels aren't helping her. So she starts looking around. And the other thing is her, I have to think about what words to choose, is the power of her character. Like she is in deep, deep grief. I mean, there are, like, I think 4 or 5 references to her weeping. So she's weeping through this whole scene, and yet she's working at the same time. She's not paralyzed by grief. And it is a danger that people experience. It shows her maturity as a person. So verse 11, so Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb. So, and what's the point of looking at the tomb? She knows it's empty. It's kind of what you do when you have a massive problem. You look at it from 7 or 8 different, you keep looking at the problem, and praying your way through it. And then the other one, which we were laughing about, they ask her why she's weeping. She says, they've taken away, I don't know where they put him. And then she's just talking to the angel. She turns around and sees Jesus standing there, but didn't realize it was Jesus. And then Liz, go ahead and read 15 and 16. And Robert, then I'll let you tell your wonderful discovery.
Okay.
Woman, he said, why are you weak? Why are you crying? Who is it that you are looking for? Thinking he was the gardener, she said, Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him. Jesus said to her, Mary. She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, Rabboni, which means teacher.
Robert?
Yeah, I mean,
Robert has really sat on this. Here, let me read it here. Woman, he said, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for? Thinking he was a gardener, she said.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you have to ask the question, right? Why did she turns and sees Jesus, but why didn't she recognize him? And then, I love the realities of, like, the very first words Jesus speaks after crushing the head of the evil one, after conquering death, is he cares about Mary and he asks her a question. Like, it does. I think that, the theological threads that are coming together here are astounding.
They are astounding.
There's a that's hearkening back to this original garden.
Yeah.
And the first question that God asks to Adam and Eve, where are you? And you have Jesus, the new Adam, asking the first question of the new order, the new creation that's begun in the resurrection, and just the realities of that. Like, John has taken us back to the second Adam and the gardener. She mistakes him as a gardener. It's like, well, why does she mistake him as a gardener? You have to ask that question, right? And I think it's
right.
I think it's really beautiful that, from a very simplistic way, Jesus came out of the tomb, needed clothes. It's very plausible. It's not giant.
I never thought of that.
Where's he going to get clothes? Well, maybe he gets, there's a garden or shack or clothes over there. I just don't think it's a mistake that John is saying she mistook him as a gardener. I think Jesus actually looked like a gardener. I think he was dressed up as a gardener.
Well, tell us about your discovery in Rembrandt, Robert.
Yeah. So I start Googling like old paintings of, Renaissance paintings of Jesus and the resurrection. And almost without fail, everyone in that period has Jesus holding a shovel and dressed as a gardener. Rembrandt's, he's got this giant sun hat on. He's got pruning shears.
He really looks like he's quite a gardener. He's really.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
he'd be good at it. I mean,
he's got pruning shears in his belt. He's got a shovel in his hand. The New Jerusalem is in the background of the painting. He's sitting with Mary. And I just think, like, it's one of those aha moments when you just ask people, why do you think she mistook him as a gardener?
Yeah.
And then you just kind of play with does this remind you of another garden? And then all of a sudden, it's just this beautiful moment where could it be that the second Adam is doing the very thing that the first Adam was told to do in the first garden?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is cultivate the ground.
Yeah.
And work it. And could it be that Jesus, right out of the tomb, is playing in the dirt?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, by the way, this is really off the subject, but I was reading an article on the space station yesterday that one of their problems is there's no dirt, and the astronauts get sick because there's no microbes.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
That was a real distraction, Robert. But go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, was he, just that thought, Paul, it's just,
it's a lovely thought.
It's got so many. So I went on this tangent for months, just like, what are the parallels between the first garden and the second garden? And, she's, you point this out, she's the new Eve and here's the new Adam. And they begin this new family, this seed of the gospel spreads through the new Eve as she goes back and tells the disciples. And Jesus says, tell them my God and your God, my Father and your Father. Like the new creation, the seed of the woman has birthed new life. It's just promised in Genesis 3.
Yeah. And it's clearly, just to add to what Robert's saying, like he's clearly hidden himself from the first, just like you were saying earlier, that he's hidden himself from the first, his best friend and the head of the disciples, John and Peter. And he's so that he could have a conversation with Mary.
Yeah.
It's just remarkable.
It is.
And what I love about it is that, I mean, this is the greatest event that had happened in all of history. We are here just historically because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, of what happened on April 9th in the year 30 AD, assuming that's the year. And like this hints, I mean, Jesus is the first person of a new creation. His body it's like, it means death is ended. Sickness is going to end. Cancer is going to end. Meanness is going to end. Murder is going to end. Death's going to end. I mean, it's just like this is the best news in all of history. And Jesus is able to pull off the announcement where he makes her name and who she is as a person the center of the announcement.
No.
It's just so
Paul, it's so Jesus-like.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the same yesterday,
today
and forever.
His
demeanor post-resurrection was just like he was before he.
Yeah.
I mean, the way he loved people.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, what's your name? Like, let me ask you a question. Like, he just.
Yeah.
And he's still doing that today.
Yeah, it really is. Liz, any thoughts on it? What we've taken a lot of the air out of here.
No, I also think, Paul, your observation on, he's hidden himself and he's speaking with her. I also think she lingered, right? Like, I wonder if, he's Jesus, so he would know everything, right? But like, the guys could have seen him too, but they just took off, went back to the place,
Right.
like, I don't feel like he would have excluded them if they'd hung around.
Yeah.
But even just like her lingering opened this connection. And yeah, it's this, that personal. I'm thinking about even how we were talking in our previous episode about, the substitutionary atonement, how our understanding can lean in this forensic way that depersonalizes. And even here in the way he announces the resurrection, it's so profoundly personal. Like it's not, he has not optimized the message so that the whole world can overhear, because he's really just talking to Mary. He's not trying to make the grand announcement, put it out on Twitter or X or whatever. Like that's not the audience he has in mind.
Yeah. You can bet I would have marched right into Jerusalem and I'd have said, I told you I'd raise the temple in 3 days.
That's the American way, Robert.
Yeah.
I told you so.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Okay, well, we have a lot more to cover, but we're going to have to save that for our next episode. So thank you guys, and thank you for listening, and we will be back again in a couple of weeks.